A weapon originally designed to fire nuclear shells just arrived on Ukraine's front lines, and Russia had absolutely no warning. The W-33 nuclear shell was specifically engineered for one gun, the 8-inch 203mm M110 howitzer. 2,000 of these warheads were produced. That nuclear program is long gone, but the gun that carried those shells? It just woke up. After decades locked in a NATO warehouse, the Cold War monster, as we'll call it throughout this video, is now aimed at Russian positions in eastern Ukraine, and the soldiers on the receiving end have never faced anything like it. This isn't just a story about artillery. This is a story about how the United States quietly reached into history, pulled out one of its most feared weapons, and sent it into the one war where it might actually end things. Nobody announced it. Nobody held a press conference. It just showed up.
To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand what the Cold War monster actually is. It wasn't built for normal war. Developed in the early 1960s, the M110 was designed to deliver devastating firepower at corps level, part of a U.S. strategy to field artillery capable of both conventional and nuclear missions. That's the part most people don't know. This howitzer was built to fire nuclear rounds at Soviet tank columns if World War III ever started in Europe. It wasn't a support gun. It was a city-erasing weapon in a conventional shell. The main reason the M110 series stayed in service for so long was exactly that, its ability to carry nuclear ammunition. When the Cold War ended, the nukes were removed, but the guns stayed, locked away, preserved, waiting, and the iron logic of history just found it a new target.
Here's what almost nobody covered correctly. This transfer wasn't announced. It was routed quietly through two countries, Greece and Czechia, specifically to avoid drawing attention. Greece had operated the Cold War monster since the early 1980s and held approximately 145 units, making it one of the last NATO members with this system still in storage. When NATO needed to move heavy artillery to Ukraine without triggering a political firestorm, Greece was the answer. The package, worth roughly 199.4 million euros, included 60 howitzers, 150,000 rounds of ammunition, and thousands of Zuni rockets, moved through Czechia under a backroom deal between governments. 60 guns, 150,000 shells, moving in the dark, and by the time anyone noticed, Ukraine's 52nd Artillery Brigade had already received them. The first shots had already been fired. Now forget everything you think you know about artillery. A standard 155mm shell, the one most people associate with Ukraine, weighs around 45 kilograms. The Cold War monster shell weighs 92 kilograms. Picture this. A fully grown adult male with both arms stretched out can barely hold this shell off the ground. That is what one round looks like. The main advantage of this weapon is the enormous destructive power of its 203mm ammunition, each shell weighing up to 90.7 kilograms, capable of massive destruction despite a rate of fire of just 1 round per minute. 1 round per minute. Slow? Yes, but think about what that 1 round does. It doesn't damage a bunker, it buries it. It doesn't hit a command post, it removes it from the map. Each gun can hurl these 92-kilogram projectiles up to 30 kilometers away using rocket-assisted ammunition. 30 kilometers. That's the distance from one city to another. The Cold War monster sends death across that entire gap before the sound of the shot even reaches the other side.
But here's what makes this deployment truly dangerous. It's not just the gun, it's what's loaded inside the shells. The ammunition package includes 50,000 high-explosive rounds, 40,000 rocket-assisted shells, and 60,000 rounds of cluster munitions. That last category has a nickname too. We're calling it the Rain of Fire, and here's why.
Each rain of fire shell contains 180 individual anti-armor and anti-personnel submunitions. One shell, one trigger, 180 explosions. Picture this: the shell climbs high into the sky, reaches the top of its arc, then bursts open above a Russian trench line. Before anyone on the ground can react, 180 individual killers are already falling. There is no cover. There is no direction to run. Now multiply that by 60,000 rounds. This isn't a bombardment. This is a systematic erasure of anything Russia tries to hold. Ukraine was already ready for this weapon before it arrived. Ukraine has been operating Soviet-era 203mm guns for years, old machines, long past their retirement age, being pushed far beyond what they were ever designed to handle. The high-explosive shells meant for the Cold War monster had already been supplied to Ukraine since 2023, where crews used them with Soviet-era 2S7 Pion cannons already in the Ukrainian arsenal. Same caliber, same shells, same crews. The Cold War monster didn't require months of retraining. It slotted into Ukraine's existing artillery infrastructure almost immediately. The 52nd Artillery Brigade is already conducting missions in the Kramatorsk and Kharkiv sectors, suggesting the American howitzers are already firing in combat. Russia spent years calculating Ukraine's firepower ceiling. Those calculations are now wrong, and every single Russian position within 30 kilometers of the front line is inside the kill zone. Russia has a counter to almost everything Ukraine deploys. Drones, they jam them. HIMARS, they move their depots deeper. Modern electronics, they try to hack or spoof them. But here's the thing about the Cold War monster. It has no electronics to jam, no GPS guidance to spoof, no digital signal to intercept. It's raw steel, raw propellant, and raw physics. With its considerable destructive power, the Cold War monster is a powerful addition to Ukraine's 155mm systems, easing the burden on older guns that have been pushed well past their operational retirement age. Russia's safe rear positions, ammo depots, fuel nodes, command posts sitting 20 kilometers behind the front are no longer safe. And to find this gun, Russia must send drones and aircraft into heavily defended airspace just to locate a system that repositions after every single shot. That's not a solution. That's a trade Russia cannot afford to keep making. The Cold War monster was built to fight the Soviet Union. It was designed for a war that never happened, and then retired because the enemy it was made to destroy collapsed on its own. Originally developed for the U.S. Army during the Cold War, the M110A2 remains one of the largest and most powerful conventional artillery systems ever fielded, and rather than being scrapped when NATO moved on, most units were placed in long-term storage. Not destroyed, preserved, as if someone somewhere suspected the story wasn't finished. And now, 60 years after it was first built to stop Soviet armor, it is firing at Russian forces in real coordinates, in real mud, in real trenches. The Cold War's weapons are fighting a war the Cold War never could finish. But here's the thought that should stay with you long after this video ends. NATO's warehouses don't just hold old guns, they hold systems that were never deployed, never needed, yet. Because if they're already sending the weapons built to threaten nuclear war, what does that tell you about the weapons they're still holding back?